morning and welcome to Frugal Fall and happy Frugal February. Today I'm going to show you a chickpea, veggie and corn curry. This is a good way to get some protein in on a budget, easy, cheap and very convenient. It's just a case of chucking stuff in and then in a few hours it's ready. It's a really handy budgeting meal. It can be portioned out and it can last for several meals, which is really handy. Freezes well too. So it's not actually a set recipe. I just tend to use up leftovers and chuck what I've got in there and see what happens. So I'll bring you along for the journey today. I hope you enjoy. Hope it's a useful video to give some ideas about ways that you could use up leftovers this Frugal February. I should also say I'm on a no-spend year. This is the second month, so it's also a no-spend February for me. No low, low no, as I've discussed in previous videos. There are certain parameters and rules, certain conditions in which I can spend. So if you have a look at the no-spend year playlist and the no-spend January playlist, you'll see some videos about it where I go into more details. So without further ado, let's get cooking. And also I wanted to tell you about my February big budget blunder. So I recently bought these in week 1 of my February shopping. I bought 2 packs of these vegetarian meatballs from Lidl. They were £3 for the 2 packets. I was really delighted. I was going to use them as part of my slow cooker chili meal that I'm going to be making this month. But unfortunately, I made a big budget blunder and I didn't store them correctly. I thought, oh, I'll make the chili over the next few days, stuck the meatballs in the fridge, and then, because normally I would freeze them and take them out when I need them, but sticking them in the fridge was a big mistake. When I read the storage instructions, I realised I'd made a budget blunder. And it's so sad because I'm going to have to throw them out. I've left it too late and I can't risk food poisoning. Don't want a broken arm and food poisoning. That would be no fun. So yeah, but what a shame. That's £3 down the drain and some perfectly good food. I absolutely hate wasting food. Because part of frugality for me, it's not just about the budgeting side, but it's also about the planet and reducing waste. Because it makes me so sad how much goes to waste in terms of food and things that end up in landfill. So yeah, so I'm disappointed about that, but these things can happen sometimes. So anyway, let's get on with this and I will carefully move these out of the way. So here's my slow cooker pot. It just sits nice and easy inside the actual part that's the cooking part. So it's very handy, although transferring it across with one broken arm, I'm going to have to be super careful. So now it's a chickpea curry, as I said, so I'm going to throw in a couple of cans of chickpeas. So I've already rinsed them and drained them just to make life easier and taken the lids off, because all these things are much harder to do right now. So I was chatting about it in past videos, especially I think the New Year's, the first video of the year, I was chatting about it especially, but I fell on the ice just before New Year's and that's how I broke my arm. So it's making things a bit of a challenge at the moment. But I was so disappointed when it happened because I'd recently started the channel. I started the channel at the beginning of December and I was gutted that this happened. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm not going to let it stop me. I'm going to keep going. It really limits what I can do at the moment in terms of just life in general. Obviously, I'm off sick as well. So yeah, it's a bummer. It's like life has ground to a halt in many respects, but there are still frugal activities that I can do and there are still ways I can share that journey with you. So thank you so much for watching and I really appreciate all the people who've subscribed recently as well. It really means a lot and I was so delighted to see that. So I was really happy that you're gaining some value and enjoying the videos, and I hope you enjoyed today's. Now, I am a garlic fiend. You don't need to put 3 cloves of garlic in your curry, but I love garlic and it keeps the vampires away. So I would normally chop my garlic, but I can't really chop things very easily right now. It's very painful to try and it's a bit dangerous. So 3 cloves, I'm going to mince them instead, just to make my life easier. And I will, oh gosh, I'm sore today. I've been in a lot more pain recently, which is a bit worrying, but I think it's just as I heal, I think the nature of what hurts has changed. Like before it was just my whole arm was so sore, my whole lower arm, and now I have much sharper pain, but it's in just the area where the injury was. So I think that maybe it's because as my nerves are starting to heal, I'm thinking, what the has happened to you? I don't know, but I'll be back at the hospital again soon. It's not so painful that I feel that I've got to urgently phone the hospital about it. I think my mum and I were chatting and we think it's mainly my tendons that are hurting and that it is probably normal, and we were reading a wee bit about it. I know you can't always believe everything out there that you read, but it seems, touch wood, hold on, touch wood, it seems as if it's okay. So yeah, I'm just checking the camera's far enough around, that's good. So I'm not going to totally overkill things with the garlic, but garlic granules are a great way, or you can get that easy chopped garlic, but it's not as budget friendly as fresh garlic. And also I mentioned in the video before about garlic that at the allotment I've got some garlic that I need to go and harvest when I'm feeling up to it. It's one thing that you can easily grow in the winter in a UK climate is garlic, and it's handy to have a supply. So, but in future when I do harvest my garlic, I'm going to separate the cloves out and then freeze it, because otherwise it can spoil quite quickly. This is another good way to add flavour, is the onion granules. I am going to put in 1 stock cube. I'm hoping to maybe get 4 meals out of this. So I might need a second or half a stock cube in addition, but I'll tell you at the end how many stock cubes I end up using. Either I'm aiming for no more than 1.5 really though. You can always add these things as you go and taste it and check the flavour. I'm going to add a little bit of the onion granules. Oh, well I'll try. Oh, this is brutal. Please be careful if there's any ice where you are. Don't be falling. It's terrible. And anybody that's going through this, I hope that you make a speedy recovery and a full recovery. And anybody that's got crazy weather conditions, I'm sending you best wishes and hope that the weather conditions pass soon. We've had a lot of storms here in Scotland, but thankfully not now. It's calmed down now. Right, that's that away. Other flavourful things are, it doesn't really matter what order you throw things in either. Oh my gosh, right, am I going to be able to turn this? Yeah, just about. Some black pepper. Not as much as I'd like to put, but I'm struggling to twist that. Sorry, this video's become also about struggling with my arm. So I'll get onto these later. Now, veggies, it's really just throw in the stuff that you like, and it can be an opportunity to use up some leftovers. Now I have some leek. These are things that I harvested at the allotment last year and then froze. So it's always handy to use these Ziploc bags because they're reusable as well. And then you can just have a stash of veggies. If you buy fresh veggies and when you get home you chop them up and portion them out, it reduces waste. Also, what I love about supermarket bought frozen veg, like for example these peas, they get picked and then they get frozen and then they lock in the nutrition. So I'm going to chuck some peas in. I love peas and they're another good protein source. So you've got the protein from the chickpeas, you've got the protein from the peas or beans if you put beans in. You've also got protein from, if you choose to use something like the corn pieces, but I'll get onto that. But the great thing about the frozen vegetables is they get picked fresh and then they get frozen. So it locks in the nutrition, it locks in the freshness and the flavour, which is really great. So, although I don't know what this is, I can't tell from, there isn't anything left written on the packet to tell me, but I think it was, oh, it's cauli, okay, cauliflower. I thought it was broccoli and I was going to say it's a bit of a funny colour and I don't know if I want to use it. It's okay, it's cauliflower. I think it's got a bit of ice burn, so it's not in the greatest condition. So I just want to get it used up. I'm going to throw that in. So cauliflower will be nice in a chickpea curry. I would say the main ingredient that I would like to have here that I don't, that I think would have been a nice addition, is peppers, chopped peppers of any colour. But maybe colours other than green, because then you've got more of a rainbow of vegetables. And it's good to have other colours because it brings in more nutrition. And they say the red versions of veggies are usually the most nutritious versions. So, oh. So some red pepper and maybe some yellow pepper or orange would have been a great thing to have. But unfortunately I don't have it. And I'm on a no spend, so I'm not going to go out and get peppers. I'll just use what I've got. It'll still be tasty. So this is some allotment cabbage. So I'm going to just use up a bit of that. It adds a bit of bulk and it adds a lot of nutrition. And again, when I harvested this, I portioned out and froze very quickly to keep the nutrients. So saving money takes more time sometimes, but it's the trade-off. And I realise that it's not always possible if people are really inundated with stuff and they're working all the hours and they've got caring responsibilities, parents and things. But then, having said that, things like this are quick. They're still very nutritious and they're quick. So just in general, frozen veggies are a great thing. This is kale. Again, it's allotment veggies, and dark green leafy veggies are very nutritious. I've been watching a documentary recently and it was quite a shocker. It made me realise how many hidden starches there are in a lot of things that we eat, and I was really horrified. Like things like kind of pre-prepared things like jars of sauces and that kind of thing. Quite often there are these starches added, and it's actually increased since the cost of living crisis got worse, because supermarkets are trying to save money, so they're bulking out the food and it's less nutritious. And I don't really want to be like filling up on glutinous starches that aren't natural. So yeah, it's really put me off, and it's really made me want to try and get back to having as much fresh as I can. While I've had a broken arm, I've been eating a lot more instant things like cup of soups and noodles and processed things, trying to have nutritious as far as that's possible, but it's just a lot harder doing stuff like this at the moment, and I'm in a lot of pain, so I get tired very easily. But I'm hoping that over time I can start having more and more of this wholesome stuff again and less of the processed stuff, especially now knowing about these starches. Yeah, it's quite horrible. But when you look on the ingredients list and if you see all these extra additives and it says about starches and things, then that's what it is. It's like test tube starch, which is quite scary. But anyway, red onions are a good addition. I'll put half a bag because I'm running out of space, and also there's some leek in there, so there's enough oniony things now. What I was going to say too is that normally I would buy these fresh and just chop them myself, but because of the broken arm situation at the moment, I've just decided to make life easier. I've just decided to buy these pre-chopped. My mum did chop some onions for me back at the beginning, but they're gone now. So in the meantime, this has been helpful. I was thinking of putting some broad beans in just to use them up. Yeah, I will, why not? The thing is, I think there will be space because things will kind of reduce down as it cooks, so it's not going to be all spilling out the top. So there's going to be, quite often making stuff in the slow cooker, you need to add water or hot water or add water and let it kind of gradually heat up depending on what you're making and stuff. But I'll just check that's still running. Yes, it is. But there's a lot of frozen stuff, so as that melts, then that's going to add water. So there's not going to be the need to add water, but I will add 1 tin of chopped tomatoes. These are just such a great item for so many things. They're just a great cupboard item. Good thing to stock up on when there's special offers. Hopefully it doesn't contain any starches and it's pure. It's got 3 ingredients and none of them are starches. Hooray! So I don't want it to be too tomato heavy as a curry because it's going to have other flavours as well. And as I say, when things melt down, but if it feels necessary to add a bit more tomato or flavour, I might add some tomato puree. I've got a tube of tomato puree down here, but that will be a kind of taste test towards the end, but it's a maybe, so I'll leave that sitting out. These can be cooked from frozen, which is really, really helpful. These are corn pieces. So they're like basically like vegetarian wee pieces, and they're a bit like chicken. They're kind of like imitation chicken. They're very nutritious and delicious and high in fibre, low in fat, and they're also gluten-free, which is really handy for anyone that needs to follow a gluten-free diet. Sometimes the supermarkets in the UK, they do like multi-buy special offers on corn and that kind of stuff. It's a good opportunity to stock up. But the other thing is if you have farm foods, or Iceland, but I don't know so much about Iceland, but for farm foods definitely, every now and then, it's not always reliable what they'll have in stock for frozen veggie stuff, but every now and then you can get these things really, really cheap, so it's worth checking out. Corn pieces, so I am running really low on space in here now. So I'm going to mix this all up in a minute, and I'm going to, so I think I'll put a few chili flakes. I'm not mad on too much chili. Chili flakes are good just to give it a wee bit of a kick. I don't want to put too many in. It's just, as you can see, it's a thing of like just chucking stuff in and seeing what happens. So there is some curry paste, but as I say, I don't know if it's got starches. I hope not. Water, green chilies, lemongrass, ginger puree, garlic. Modified maize starch. Boo. But I don't really fancy putting this in this curry. It is nice. It's a Thai curry paste though, so I don't feel like, I'd rather use this for some kind of fish dish. It would go better. But tikka curry powder is good in a chickpea curry, and it works well with the tomato as well. So I'm going to put 1.5 of these wee spoons. So that will be about 1 to 1.5 teaspoons It's a kind of medium strength. I like quite a strong curry. Again, if there was more needed, I can always do a taste test later. Milk. Now, it was really disappointing because I would normally buy a can of coconut milk, and again, when I get home, portion it, if there's room in the freezer, portion it out into like wee tubs like this and freeze, because they're really useful for just adding a bit of creaminess to a curry. And then you get loads of portions out of that if you split it up, rather than using part of a can and then having to throw the rest out. It's a good way of making that can of coconut milk stretch a lot further. So I thought I had 1 or 2 of these wee coconut milks in the freezer, like a kind of creamy coconut milk that you get in the can. But unfortunately I don't. But I'm gonna just add a really small dash of oat milk instead, because that'll give a little bit of creaminess. But don't need much, just a wee tiny bit, and that should be enough. So I'm gonna mix this up, get it on to cook, show you what it looks like. Back in a minute. Here we are. So what I did is that chopped tomato tin, I filled that with water, and I've added that. There needed to be a bit more fluid in here so it doesn't burn. All the stuff in there, it doesn't burn. But as I say, as the veggies, as they defrost, it'll all reduce down, but that'll add some extra water, extra fluid. And what I'll do is I'll just closely, for the first hour or 2, I'll closely monitor it, and I can always add more water if needed. So that's now gone on to high for 2 to 3 hours. Because it's a kind of chuck it in and see recipe, I'm not going to be going out and leaving it. I prefer to stay in anyway and cook things on high for a bit less time rather than on slow for 8 hours or something, and just keep a wee eye on it. And then it means while I'm running my errands today, getting my laundry done and stuff like that, I'll be able to have the nice smell of curry wafting through the flat all day, which is really comforting. And then you know that there's a tasty meal to look forward to at the end. But I do want to monitor and get the fluids up ASAP, to have it so it's just the moisture, the water fluid is just sitting over, just up to the surface of where the veggies are. And it'll be pushed down, so there'll be a bit of a gap, probably 1 inch or 1.5 inches, or maybe 2-inch gap between the top of the pot and where the water is and where the stuff's sitting. Probably 1.5 inches, I reckon. But I'll show you later. I'll let you know how much water is added in total for this recipe and for this meal, and how much flavouring in terms of the stock cubes, and whether I add extra stock cubes or half a stock cube or any other seasonings or flavours. I'll let you know, because I'm going to do some taste tests as I go along as well. So that's that. Also wanted to show you, now I thought I would go through my frozen fruit drawer, because this month I really want to declutter it and use things up. These things have been sitting here and they're not getting used, and they need to get used. So in order to up my fruit and veg and vitamin intake this month, I'm going to use up this stuff and have smoothies. So there's 3 bags of frozen smoothie ingredients there. There's some melon, there's some chopped strawberries, there's frozen blueberries. There's also a wee packet of frozen blueberries I've got in the freezer at the moment that can be used. There's some mango, there's avocado, and that adds a bit of nutrition and makes the smoothie even greener. So it'll be easy to use those things up, and it needs to get used up because they're losing their freshness now. I got these things I was going to use to add to water, to make the water a bit more flavoursome and nutritious. But I always forget they're in there, and then I never get around to using them. So I'm thinking I might use them up in some recipe. I'm gonna do a bit of research and see. I do have a lemon, like a raw lemon slices recipe in a cookbook, a raw cookbook. So I might have a look at that and use them up somehow for that. And if so, I'll let you know. There's a load of rhubarb that was harvested from the allotment. And it's just sitting in the freezer, not being used, and it's a pity. So again, I want to use some of it up and maybe make some recipe. Don't know whether it'll be this month, maybe next month, because there's other frozen sweet things that I'm using up that were allotment based cakes, like beetroot cake and courgette cake and apple cake. So I might just get them used up first and then do something with this rhubarb. Maybe make some jam, a crumble, who knows? I'll keep you posted. And then also this pomegranate. So I might put some of that in my yogurts or in my porridge or something just to get it used up. And then the other thing was, accidentally found 2 packets of aubergine spread that I made. Again, it was allotment produce, I think. Yeah, it was allotment produce. So what I'll probably do with those is just to add a bit of flavour, maybe throw them in when I'm doing the chili. Or they could be used inside wraps to add a bit of flavour. Save me having to use anything more fattening as the kind of moisture maker or spread in the wraps. We'll see. But again, it would be good just to get them used up and out of the way. So I will be back shortly in a few hours with an update on the slow cooker meal and how it's come along. This is just 5 minutes or so since I last saw you guys. I just gave everything a really good mix through, made sure it's all well blended together, not like with a blender, but you know, thoroughly mixed. And also it's beginning to all defrost. It's getting quite hot already, and so it's at a good level, and this is great, and it's covering everything it needs to cover, which is particularly important if it was meat being cooked. I think. I think sometimes people cook meat in a slow cooker and it's not all covered with fluid, but it gives me peace of mind if I know that the water and the sauce is up to the level here. It's covering everything, and yeah, and it can just have its 3 hours, probably, maybe a bit less. I'll let you know again at the end. But I don't envisage needing to add any extra fluid to this at all, because it's got a decent amount in there, which is great. So I'll let it do its thing for about 3 hours, and I'll see you soon. Here is the finished curry. It's ended up more like a broth because I added an extra. I filled the tin of chopped tomatoes, the empty tin, with water and put that in at the beginning of the slow cooking process. So that, plus the fact that there were frozen vegetables, has made it too liquidy, I think. If I cooked it for longer, it could reduce down, but then I think that the veggies and things would be overcooked. So I would rather have it more like a curry broth. I'm quite happy to do that and have it with something like udon noodles. But for making an actual curry with a curry sauce to have with something like rice, it would usually be a lot more fresh vegetables rather than almost everything frozen. And that would improve the texture, and it would improve the consistency of the sauce. Also, not adding, then there wouldn't be the need to add the extra water either. Maybe more chopped tomatoes and less water. So it's interesting to have done a bit of trial and error to see, but definitely I put too much water in hindsight. But as I say, I don't mind personally, but if you're making something like this yourself, I would say don't add that extra tin of water. and hopefully you could have a lot more fresh ingredients and less frozen things, and maybe something like a bit of tomato puree would help to thicken it as well. And you could cook things for longer if you wanted to. But I've just had a wee taste, and as far as the flavours are concerned, it's delish. It's a very good strength for the curry. It's got 1.5 teaspoons of tikka powder. It has a sprinkling of chili flakes and only 1 stock cube. I didn't need to add any more. So I'm very happy with that as far as the flavours are concerned. As I say, the consistency and the amount of fluid isn't how I would want a curry, but I know why it's happened. I think the fact that so much of it on this occasion is frozen veggies. As I say, I just use what I've got available and chuck it in. But normally there'd be a lot more fresh ingredients, and I think that's what's affected it this time. But it was very interesting to do that wee experiment and see how it turned out, and it will still be perfectly tasty and edible. So thank you for coming along with me on this wee journey, culinary journey. I hope you enjoyed it and that it's given you some food for thought. Sorry, very cheesy. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.